the internet had a profound impact on the small business marketplace. It took the brick and mortar store and replaced them with online stores that were able to deliver more, faster to its customer base. And that's where this story begins. So, does the Mule deliver on the story of an elderly man trying to reclaim his life? Or is this story putting more than just the silver-haired audience to sleep? Let's talk about it in this review. Clint Eastwood is back in the director's chair, and he has brought an all-star cast alongside him for this tale. The basic premise is a World War II veteran loses his home and farm to a competing business that finds success online. He then decides to go ahead and be a driver for a Mexican drug cartel to try and get the money back to buy his house out of foreclosure, as well as fix up some of the local spots that he frequents or the people in his town frequent. However, he's so good at his job, he continues to get more and more offers, which eventually lands him on the radar of the FBI and the DEA, which eventually lands in him being caught. Now, layered within this premise is an incredibly wonderful story about one character, Earl, played by Clint Eastwood. The other individuals we meet in this story all add something to the story, and they all add something to build on the character of Earl, but make no mistake, this entire movie is about one man, and it's a character study on that one man. We get a complete look at who the character of Earl is, both at work, at home, with his family, on the road, dealing with drug dealers, dealing with law enforcement. So if the character of Earl doesn't work, this film would not work. And I'm happy to report that Clint Eastwood does a phenomenal job bringing this character to life in a fully formed, three-dimensional way for us to enjoy on the big screen. Will Clint Eastwood get an Academy Award nomination for his performance in this film? Maybe not, but that shouldn't stop us from talking about just how good of a job he does in this role. And the story doesn't waste any time. With a runtime that clocks in just under 2 hours, we get all the necessary information to really build out this story of a man who put work in front of his family until that work lands him in jail. However, the story takes a curious pivot in the second act. The head of the Mexican drug cartel family that Clint Eastwood is driving for is killed by a fellow gang member who's part of his team. Now, normally that sort of thing wouldn't be too surprising in a story like this. However, in this case, it is a little weird because he's a lower level thug that's trying to make a name for himself and the family and just trying to get that one job to get some attention. So when he kills the leader of the crime family, who's played by Andy Garcia, and then we see him jump several ranks within the crime family, it's a little jostling because the story doesn't really do anything to kind of set that moment up. It kind of takes away from another character who probably would have been better utilized to kind of kill the Andy Garcia character to kind of keep the story fluid and keep everything moving forward. And it's because of this one moment and this one pivot in the story that eventually leads to the how and the why Earl is captured. And everything leading up to that point felt natural for the world that we're in for this particular story. But again, this weird pivot happens, and from the pivot, everything grows much darker, everything gets more serious, the death occurs, and then it's just a mad race in the third act to the finale. The entire third act just flies by. So we've got the first two acts, which are setting up the story wonderfully about a man who is late in life trying to reclaim his life. And then the third act hits and it's just sprinting to the finish line. And again, it's a very dynamic shift in this story that really kind of caught me off guard and kind of jostled an otherwise fluid and well-developed and well-paced story. The Mule is playing at your local movie theater right now, and I'm actually not going to recommend a big screen viewing of this film, but I will recommend you check it out once it's available on Redbox or your preferred video streaming service. Like I said, Clint Eastwood does a great job of bringing the character of Earl to life, and he really puts on a class for how to do character development. However, that pivot late in the second act really kind of draws my attention away from everything that was working really well. And so because of that, I can't give the Mule all the high fives. Also, the story doesn't really do much to build on any of the other characters in this movie. They all feel thin and two-dimensional. So I won't be giving it both high fives either. So instead, the Mule will be getting one high five from this guy. The Mule is playing at your local movie theater right now.